Tonight's episode of Fireside is brought to you by Legends of Belize. Visit legendsofbelize.com to learn more.
Hello, everybody. You're listening to Fireside Paranormal Podcast. My name is Jordan Cline, and I have a great show planned out for you today. My guest tonight, Barry Fitzgerald. Before we get to him, just a few announcements. Newsly is an audio app for iOS and Android. It picks up web articles about the most trending topics on the web at any given moment and reads them to you in a natural human voice. For the first time in the history of the internet, the entire web becomes listenable. Browse articles from topics you choose and start playing. Stop scrolling, start listening. You can follow any topic as specific as you'd like, from sports, science, to Bitcoin, or even the Kardashians. It'll find you the latest articles and read them to you aloud. They also have podcasts, so explore trending podcasts from over 50 countries. My show, Fireside Paranormal Podcast, is there too. Download and use Newsly for free now from www.newsly.me or from the link in the description, and use promo code FIRESIDE, where the eyes are ones. I'll also put that in the description, and you receive 1 month free premium subscriptions. I would like to encourage you all to check out American Paranormal Magazine. This month's issue features Fireside Paranormal Podcast, so make sure you check it out. Go to paranormalzine.com. I'd also like to thank our show sponsor, Legends of Belize.
Legends of Belize is a series about mythical creatures that dwell in the jungles and waters of Belize. The Belizean legends are captured, documented, and preserved like never before in a comprehensive art series and books with fully colored and detailed images of fine art by artists, authors, and award-winning animators Dismas and Grissy G. Discover the supernatural creatures that await deep in the jungles, such as the mysterious dwarf called Tata Duende with backwards feet, known to rip the thumbs off of trespassers, or the beautiful shape-shifting woman known to locals as the Ishtabai, who seduces drunks to never be seen again. These creatures and many more can be found in the Legends of Belize books. Learn about the cryptozoological, paranormal, and unexplained creatures that haunt Belize. Be fascinated. Be terrified. Belize. Legend of Belize books are available in print and ebook. Buy your copy from your favorite online bookstore such as Amazon, KDP, Apple Books, and many more. Also be sure to visit legendsofbelize.com.
If you would like to be one of our show sponsors, reach out to firesideparanormalpodcast@gmail.com. Patreon is also something that we have now. There are several tiers for you to choose from. The $1 tier gets you a name drop, Discord, and 1 bonus audio. $3 tier, Discord, name drop, 1-inch sticker, and 2 bonus audio. The $5 tier, Discord, name drop, 3-inch sticker, and all bonus audio. The bonus audio that I'm talking about is kind of like an after the interview conversation with the guest, as well as anything else I decide to record through the month. And there's also our $20 tier. This is Join Me by the Fire. You get the Discord, a 3-inch sticker, a name drop, and you get all bonus audio. But the big thing with this is we do a giveaway, like a drawing, at the end of the month, and that winner actually gets to be on the show with me. I do want to thank you all for the support, all the patrons that have signed up so far. I am trying to enhance the quality of the show. I need to upgrade some of the equipment. So your support of the show this way really does help keep things going. I really do appreciate and love you. A no-cost option to support the show would be a rating and a review. So if you would give a 5-star rating and a good review, that helps out with the algorithms and things like that. It really does support Fireside. So appreciate all of you in any way you can contribute. From the bottom of my heart, I thank you. I do have an event coming up July 23rd and 24th. It is the Wonders Oddities Expo. It will be at the West Virginia State Penitentiary in Moundsville, West Virginia. I'm going to have a table set up. I love these conventions. I'm going to have my recording stuff there. We're going to talk with all of you. I enjoy meeting you all face to face, having some good conversations, meeting some teams. And of course, I love it when you share your personal stories. That's where we get a lot of our featured stories from at these events. The event will be from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. If you're in the area, if you can make it there, It is always a blast. They put on a great show. So I hope to see you there.
Have you encountered something you can't explain? Do you believe in the paranormal but haven't experienced it? Are you a skeptical believer too? My name is Kristen and I host the Paranormal Girl podcast. My show is an education in the paranormal. Join me as we explore a different topic each season and dissect origins, theories, experts, and so much more. Whether it's life after death, cryptids, ghosts, or any other paranormal topic, we will pull it apart and put it back together again to fully understand it. If you're a fascinated skeptic, a believer yearning to know more, if you're looking for an education in the paranormal, I'm your Paranormal Girl.
Kristen just started her new season. It is on Psychics and Mediums, so if you haven't checked her show out yet, go subscribe, Paranormal Girl Podcast. To add on to our featured stories that we usually do, I had the privilege to speak with a team, and I thought it would be really cool to have a team come on and introduce themselves, what they do, and a fun experience from an investigation. Here is our first team.
We are What the F Just Happened, and I am Brittany, coming in from Massachusetts.
I'm Nicole, coming in from Pennsylvania.
And I'm Rachel, coming in from West Virginia.
We will be talking about a little thing that kind of happened during Waverly, our first ever investigation together. It predominantly happened with Rachel and Nicole, though, so I'll hand it over to them.
Rachel, do you want to start?
Sure. So Waverly was our first investigation as a group, and we were on the 4th floor, which was the surgical floor, just sitting, doing an Estes session with some other people that we were investigating with, and we were being quiet, listening, and all of a sudden there was this loud vibration noise that came from the end of the hallway, so loud that we felt it on the ground. And
it was not a fart, don't worry.
No, it almost sounded kind of like a bone saw, to me at least, and it was utterly terrifying. I ended up yeeting myself away from this noise into one of my friends. Nicole is perched, ready to run.
Oh yeah, I legit got up and I was ready to bolt it at this point. I grabbed my bag and I was starting to run towards the sound. And then I was like, wait, no, I have nowhere to go. So I sat back down.
Am I going to fight the demon? Nope.
Pretty much.
She was just thinking, that's the only staircase I know of. I'm going to sprint towards it. Oh, wait, that's where the noise came from. Never mind.
She wasn't even headed towards the staircase. It was one room behind me that had no escape. She was going to be trapped. So
yeah.
So we never figured out what the noise was. I have it on audio recording. We didn't know what it was. We tried to recreate it throughout the night, went around moving things on that floor. It wasn't windy. It wasn't any of the sun porch doors. We still have no idea what it was to this day. And that was almost 3 months ago.
Yeah.
Very cool. No, and that was your first investigation together, and you had something like that.
Yeah.
Which was even odder because we actually split up a good portion of the night. I was with Brewing Fear and doing some backtracking of previous stuff that's happened to me because I've actually been to Waverly before. And when I was filming them, I feel most comfortable in the solarium hallway. So I like standing there and everything like that. It's very open. So they were in the middle hallway where the rooms connect. It's the main hallway, kind of doing EVP sessions and everything like that. And I was recording. And the wind was blowing a little bit because it's a little rainy. And I look out of the corner of my eye. I see a woman in white on the windowsill.
Oh, wow.
Kind of lean forward. And it freaked me out. I've never seen anything with my own eye before. There was only one other time, but I just played it off it's it might be the shadows or something like that because it was so far away. It was late at night. I was just okay, I might have seen something, but it was so vivid and it was right next to me because I was in the pillar. And so I was telling Jeff from Brewing Fear about where it is, and he's a huge skeptic and everything like that. So I was hanging around with them, seeing how they do it as skeptics. Meanwhile, I just accept that. I'm it could be something, it could not be something. It just happened. So I saw that figure actually twice before Nicole ended up running over to me, saying what happened, because I didn't realize, like, I was saying, what the F, like, what am I seeing? And so all this stuff is happening with them, and the most that we're getting is some knocking noises from one end of the hallway. We go to the end of the hallway. We hear it at the other end of the hallway, as if they're playing like a joke on us. And we were using the Ovilus to try and like communicate a little different, not just through the EVP sessions and Estes sessions. And we just kept getting like actions. Literally, that's it. No names, no like areas, locations, just actions of stuff like hitting, sitting, punching, stuff like that. So I was just like, they're touring with us. I am not having fun at this moment. I am a little wet and cold.
You're a new team, but you've all investigated separately, it sounds like.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Because, I mean, you're talking about different methods that are kind of newer methods and, you know, bigger equipment. So it's not like, hey, I was standing out there with my tape recorder. You're like, I had my Ovilus.
Well, we do also use stuff like our phones and cameras as well. The high-tech cameras that, like, Rachel uses to take and preserve some of these locations through photography. Nicole uses her like iPhone to just do recordings, everything like that. She's got a list of different recordings and stuff like that. Sometimes it's the simpler equipment that ends up getting stuff too, but we like to have the option of like what's going on. So we love to investigate with other groups as well as keeping with ourselves, because we don't have everything, and we like to see the way other people do it too.
Now, how can folks get up with you? Like if they want to check out what's new with What the F Just Happened.
We have an Instagram account that is at What the F Just Happened. We also have a website that Brittany actually made, and that is also linked in our bio and our Instagram account. So if anyone ever wants to come investigate with us or anything like that, you're more than welcome to email us, DM us on our Instagram. I check that daily. Or you can even send over an email through the website, and Brittany will end up checking that as well too.
Yeah, we have a contact list that we put on our website. There's actually been 2 people that have reached out since, and I've been in communication with them.
Nice.
They're further south, and if we've been talking, if any events pop up that we're able to go to, that we might end up connecting with them and doing a group investigation that way.
Now, what's the next big investigation?
So as a whole group, I was going to say, as a whole group, it's going to be Eloise. But Rachel and I are going to be together in West Virginia on the 28th and 29th for doing Moundsville and then Old College Hospital.
Nice.
As well.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, congrats on your team, y'all, and thank you.
Thank you for having us.
If you have a team out there that would like to do a little highlight on the show, or if you would like your story to be a featured story, make sure you email me, firesideparanormalpodcast@gmail.com. All right, I want to get to my guest. Join me by the fire as we welcome Barry Fitzgerald. He is a researcher and author and alien buster. Barry, you with us?
I am, Jordan. Yes, thanks very much for having me on.
How are you this morning, sir?
Well, cheery, which is a start, though. I have been battling through film funding guidelines and maps and everything else to start this next line of projects. And all of a sudden, the boat engine that I needed finally let me down. And of course, working on that yesterday, I ended up busting the back and oh, for God's sake, it's just been one thing after another. But everything that starts off bad usually ends up good.
That's
so I'm looking at it that way.
That's the way. Hopefully that's the one thing trying to scare you away so that greatness follows.
Or death.
Now, what's the film project you're working on?
I can't say anything about that yet. That's all top secret. But needless to say, it includes vampires, ghosts, and UFOs.
Come on now. Have you always been into UFOs?
Not necessarily, no. It's just the research that I've been conducting over the last last, I suppose, 15 years, has been exposing this fine thread that weaves through a lot of the fringe research fields, and they all share a huge connectivity. And by doing that, then I then started spreading my wings into the other areas to see the common factors that join it all together. And by doing that and stripping away the way this particular phenomena wishes to be recognized, by stripping that mask away, it was interesting to see that the phenomena in which they interact with us remains the same, indicating that we're possibly looking at something from the same source.
The same source.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, you think, I don't know, like the alien phenomena might be earthbound?
Actually, yes, that's what it would seem to suggest.
Really?
That a lot of what we assumed was coming from Jupiter and Mars and everything else, that was just the illusion. These particular things have been here for thousands of years, probably even before we were.
Oh wow!
And it it really relates into dimension rather than this universe, and it seems very, very easy for it to cross over. Now we've had people who did cross over into that. Our myth and folklore within Ireland, especially, records people who have slipped through these portals or doorways, if you like, and how that affected them. Not for the best, I have to say. There usually have been very bad side effects from doing that, according to the mythology and folklore. But we also share that with folklore as well that we find in Japan. Like this is global.
Really? That
when we start talking about these particular portals, and a lot of this phenomena materializes and has this particular fascination with rock strata, either be rock plains or cliff edges or cave systems. A lot of it seems to be circumvent around this. And, when you're looking at a lot of the video evidence, looking at these strange lights that suddenly zip across the sky and disappear into the side of a hill, at those particular speeds, you expect to find a 2-mile long scattering like Roswell of little alien bodies. But you just don't find that. It's as if the stone itself just opens up and swallows them. And when we go back and we look at the mythology and the folklore, again, we start seeing this common factor which leads us back to stone. If you consider, for instance, the English very troublesome creature called the goblin.
Yeah.
Goblin in itself is derived from Middle French, which is gobelin. And then that translates from the early Germanic, which is kob, which means hole in stone. So again, it brings us back, and when we follow the etymology back to the stone, and a lot of these things, like the shining ones, for instance, the bright ones, we find them through the ufology. We also find them in religion, and these beings appear around rock strata again, as I indicated. But when we start really screwing down into those interactions, that's when we really start finding the identity, the true identity of these particular things. For us, for controlling mechanisms and things like that within society, a lot of people, a lot of industries, a lot of religions will orientate this into something which it was not designed to be. And when you start looking at a lot of the shining ones, I'll give you a particular instance.
Okay.
The Lourdes incident in France, where Bernadette was out one particular morning and she heard this very strange. It was almost like a hum. Again, you find this within ufology. Also find it when dealing with a fairy.
Yeah.
This particular noise started in the atmosphere. She started triggering. Now, whenever I say triggering, I mean her fight or flight was starting to trigger. She was getting concerned that she couldn't understand what was going on. And this creature appeared. and it appeared in the mouth of a cave system there in Lourdes. And it mimicked Bernadette. And Bernadette was standing with her rosary beads going from one to the other, and this particular creature just mimicked her. Now, it wasn't to say it didn't appear with two heads. It didn't have anything untoward. It wasn't a reptile or anything like that. It was a person, but smaller, much smaller than Bernadette. Now, Bernadette was just around 5 feet, so this particular person was shorter than Bernadette, and then subsequently, since that particular initial sighting and some after that, the church rolled in and smoothed the encounter out. Uh-huh. And they created these statues. Now, Bernadette seen the statues and she was furious. She said, "That's not what I saw." Because the church, of course, had orientated it and switched it so that it was Our Lady, the mother of Jesus, that was appearing. But she says, "That is not what I saw."
Oh, wow.
And in the early stages, she referred to it as that thing.
That thing.
That thing, yeah. And, those early instances, those early encounters, there's a lot to be learned from that. And usually within the first 20 seconds. Medjugorje is another perfect example. The children were frightened still. And that, the fear is the very important factor, because that's our instinct, that's our intuition, that's the seat of a discernment. It's kicking in to tell us something is not right here. This is not something that's for our benefit.
Yeah.
Our fight or flight is kicking in and responding to that particular situation.
That's incredible. All right. So with the sightings, are you kind of feeling that like the Fae and Alien are possibly the same creature, right?
Oh, there's no doubting that the true, I have to say, the true encounter of our ancestors is the very same thing.
Okay.
When we go back and we start looking at this aspect of animal mutilation, for instance, something which we see as inherently connected to the UFO sector. If we go back 100 years, I'll give you an instance of a farmer here in Ireland,
okay,
who his cattle, the cow, ended up giving birth to a calf. Everything was great, and he put the cow into the barn, which was beside the house, and he put the calf in with it that particular night. His deepest regret was that he didn't use iron to protect the animals, the likes of the horseshoe, the iron horseshoe over the top of the doorway and things like that, because iron was a key factor for keeping the fairy away. They were petrified of iron. And he got up the next morning and came out, and the cow was butchered. It was sliced and diced, and he made reference to the udders being removed as well.
Wow.
And the calf was destroyed as well. So now he was blaming that on the fairy. And in fact, I've been to locations here in Ireland which are very, very close. You could throw a stone and hit this particular area because it's known for the fairy, and finding butchered cows on the side of the laneway, which all show the same key factors: the missing tissue around the mouth, the anal coring, all of that, and that's connected to the Fae.
Yeah,
the Fae were doing the very same thing. The phenomena remains the same. It's the mask that changes. And if you go back into the Middle Ages, we find French carvings on wood that show these demonic little creatures, little imps, with long surgical instruments penetrating into the abdomens of people. And so again, you're looking at the same phenomena, just a different mask. It's the way we interpret it.
Yeah. Now, would you say it, because you kind of changed my question in a way when you say masks, because at first I'm thinking, okay, like they're the same creature, they're the same, all this, like I'm not as familiar with the Fae, obviously, as you are. So I'm thinking of like the reptilians and the ones that look like giant insects and things like that. But then when you say masks, it's like, okay, well, they're just changing how we are perceiving them.
That's correct. Right? Yes.
And then, I know there's a lot of folklore about like brownies, where they're like living in the house.
Yes.
Like, how does that translate in, or would this be like a different type of phenomena?
No. You tend to have the same type of phenomena. And if you start looking for it, you can actually attract it. You can attract it back. It's exceptionally easy to do so. And I know that there's a lot of paranormal people that will end up going to various different locations and bringing something home to their property. That's how easy it is. And whenever I was writing the book, The Influence, which looks at how this particular phenomena can approach us and attach to us, and you end up forming this attachment. That particular book looks at the biology of what's going on with our bodies and how it is altering the biology in our body. Now we can turn that back. It is easy enough to turn it back, but the whole key to it is actually recognizing that this has now began to happen. And that particular book, when I initially was starting to write it, I was given a warning, and I said, "Don't become too bright, or they see you." and I often wondered to myself, what does that mean? What's that referring to? And years later, I was privy to a global experiment within the use of electrical voice phenomena.
Okay.
And continually they were asking the same question: how do you see us? And it kept coming back time and time again as light. Then it started suddenly started to click as to what the initial warning really referred to. And strangely enough, whether it's connected or not, just several years ago, there was Japanese researchers in, I think it's Sinde in Japan, and they discovered that there is a particular light that emanates from the body, and it's 1,000 times less than we can see with the human eye.
Wow. Would that be like aura?
No, this is very, very different, because they say that this is not affected by heat, it's not affected by anything else, and predominantly it's produced through the face. You will have some around the chest, but predominantly it's produced through the face.
Wow.
Now, this is 1,000 times less. They have to use specialized technical equipment to see this. It's at its most impressive at around 4 p.m. during the day. So that really switches this idea of attachments on its head, because we think of attachments as, I was out investigating at night and it seen me and it attached and everything else, because it was always associated with darkness. But we're at our brightest at 4 p.m. in the day.
Wow.
And that in itself, don't become too bright or they see you. That attachment could happen during the day, and they wait because our light diminishes at night. And that, of course, is when our immune system, everything else starts to settle down, and that's whenever they can do what they do. But the attachment itself may actually occur during the day.
And that can be with any type of phenomena, right?
Because... if you're making yourself bright, that certainly could work. And there are a lot of sensitives out there who will use their ability at key points, and this is something that I would reiterate as well. If you're going into something and you're not quite sure where you are or what is within the building or the landscape, you put out there. You put out and you're tapping the environment, but make sure and put it back in the box. Because once you're finished with it, that's your light. Make sure you dim it again.
Now, how does somebody do that? Have you thought about that?
Yeah, a lot of it is about intent. It's the same way that the doorways are open to this particular phenomena. It's about intent. And, the intent can be very, very easy. And a lot of people give Ouija boards a bad rap.
Uh-huh.
And, and they have their faults. But a lot of researchers will say, well, we don't use Ouija boards. But yet they use a voice recorder to say, is there anyone there? The intent is there. That small intent can be enough to open the doorway. But the problem is that we don't think about closing the doorway again. So for a house or a property or a landscape, for instance, that maybe doesn't have phenomena that particular night, and you leave and you think, well, there was nothing there. There's nothing to say that 2 days, 2 weeks, or 2 months later, you left the door open, that something could come through. And that can be a severe problem.
Oh, yeah. Oh, you just opened my brain up to so many thoughts right now. No, I'm going back to think. I had Bishop James Long on at the beginning of the year, and he was kind of talking about how with EVP, when you're doing it, you could be, inviting, the demonic. If you're in an area that's got a demonic entity, you could be inviting that in because of you're opening up. Hey, is there anybody here? Show me that you're the things that you say during an EVP session could definitely be an invite.
Once that intent is there, that doorway can be opened, and that's where we really need to heavily lean on our gift of discernment. Everyone has it. Whether we use it or not is another thing. And how our body reacts to an entity that hasn't got our best intention is a vital understanding, and that will manifest physically. So that's I suppose, if you really want to put a label on it, that's our soul manifesting through the physical to warn you that be aware, there's another shadow here. Wow. So those signals are something we need to really work on. And some folks have asked me, well, what's my favorite piece of equipment? Just me. I'll listen to it. The problem that we face, and I'm starting to wander off the questions, I'm aware, but
no, you're good. You're fine.
With a lot of equipment is that they've got all these bells and shiny whistles, and most of the time it's the same crap, repackaged and given out again
with a new mask on it, right?
Yeah. But the problem is, you see, that locks us into the conscious brain. That locks us into the left-hand hemisphere. So we're always walking or concentrating on the physical instead of listening to the seat of our instinct in the right-hand hemisphere. So it's locking us out of our true ability. So that can be problematic. So it's about finding a balance. And the more equipment you have, the less likely you are to connect to who you really are and what you can really do. So that can be problematic. But our gift of discernment, our instinct, can actually be shut off before an investigation by consuming refined sugar. Refined sugar can actually blind our discernment.
Really?
Yeah. If you have a soda drink or whatever before you go into an investigation, forget it. You've just blinded your best piece of equipment.
Now, why is that?
It works in biology, and the way that it blocks the signals, and it's insidious. And when we consider the likes of a lot of the Celtic lore, where there's a belief system there that there are several points within the calendar that the veil between the two worlds becomes thin.
Yep.
And for instance, May and October, Halloween, or Samhain as we call it here in Ireland. Those are the 2 points in which we feed our children copious amounts of candy. We're actually blinding our children from developing those instincts.
So do you think that was created on purpose way back when?
Well, you can be sure someone's making a lot of money out of it. There always is.
Now, I do want to touch on the Fae just a little bit, bit more. In the U.S., when we talk about things like this, it's very, maybe aloof would be the right word. Mm-hmm. We don't really put much count into it, but in Ireland, it's very much a part of your culture. Right?
Oh, it is. Now, don't get me wrong. I've also come across them in America. And in fact, the huge amount of the Native American communities there have all had dealings with them in their various forms. They are global. And this particular phenomena, we tend to track using modern day satellites. Okay. Because there are particular areas around the world that we identify using specialized data. Instead of shooting in the dark, as we were doing 20, 30 years ago, now we can actually pinpoint the areas that we know the phenomenon is going to appear. And in fact, a huge majority of the historical key areas, Skinwalker Ranch, the mountain lights in Virginia and things like that, all of those particular places fall into these key areas. So we're able to pinpoint and say, okay, if we're going to have an encounter, predominantly we're going to have it here. So that really eases a lot of the pressure from serious research. If you're just going out for a bit of a laugh, stick to the houses, stick to the graveyards, and do that. But if you're going after the serious stuff, well, then it's good to know and save time by using the satellite systems.
Now, would you say a lot of the cryptid type of sightings, does that fall into that same category as the Fae?
Yeah,
like you're thinking of like
cryptids also fall into that.
I've heard like Bigfoot, a lot of things like Bigfoot might be the Fae, or
yeah. A lot of times in the early days we were pigeonholing
a lot of
phenomena. Stuff. The paranormal had to be in the paranormal box, and the cryptid had to be in the cryptid box. The UFO had to be in the ufology box, and those boxes did not touch. But the truth of the matter is, they actually did, and it was known that researchers who were taking accounts of Bigfoot, whenever there was a mention of a UFO that was seen at the same time, the report was cast away. It was not included because it didn't fit in the box.
Yeah.
There's a UFO seen with Bigfoot. Well, there are UFOs seen with Bigfoot a lot of the times.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of UFOs seen with Bigfoot. So there is that crossover, and this ability to phase in and out is something which they do very, very aptly. I was on a mountain here recently, and it's known as Knocknashee. Now, for the Irish, that's hill. For the modern Irish, that's known as the Hill of the Shee, the Hill of the Fairy.
Okay.
And that's a place you can go to and have an encounter. And timing is everything. That's always important, and that's something a lot of my friends will hear me rabbiting on about. Time is everything, and being at the location at the right time really, really aids this encounter. And they have appeared in front of me. In fact, they have appeared in which I was able to take a photograph of them.
Really?
Yeah. And they're just like you and me. And they're not like Tinkerbell that you tend to see flying around Disney Castle. It's nothing like that. But as quickly as they appear, they can disappear. But predominantly, and what I learned from my own encounter, what I learned from my own encounter on Knocknashee is that the camera cannot lie during the encounter, but they can manipulate our conscious connection. They will connect to you on a conscious level, and that's where the problem begins. Because usually after the 20-second interval, then they'll start to push your brain into the theta rhythm. And when that occurs, that's whenever we tend to go into a deep state of meditation. That's also the place where hypnotic suggestion, false memory can be implanted in that particular stage. And to give you an example of this, while I was standing on the mountain, I was watching two of them walk away from me. Now, this was following an initial encounter earlier. Two of them were walking away from me. One was taller than the other, and they were wearing two different colored jackets. But the camera only saw one. And at that particular moment, I realized they're projecting what they want me to see.
Yeah.
But the camera only sees one. And that was a very vital lesson, because a lot of this phenomena across the board will not appear if there's a camera, because the camera can't fall for the illusion, because the illusion is within our conscious brain.
Yeah. Wow. So like what you say, hey, you saw them as clear as like you and me. What did they look like? Did they look like people? Did they look?
Yeah, they just look like people. Just look like people, and off they go, and they're walking across the landscape, and then poof, they're gone. And I've said, how is this possible? Because I've got a ringside seat of 360 degrees for 6 miles.
Yeah.
Where the hell did they go? And the initial encounter, there were 3 teenagers, and they were wearing fleece, primary colors of fleece jackets, and they were walking with sticks. Now, they didn't see me initially, and because I was hiding inside an ancient passage chamber which predates the Great Pyramids of Giza. and then I made myself known through movement.
Yeah.
And that's whenever they realized I was there. And like that, they were gone. I can't explain how they did it. They just do it. And that was it. But I was able to get that photograph. That was important, that I was able to get that and understand the phenomena and understand. Whenever we ended up out in the desert in California, we knew there was a location we wanted to go to, which was about 7 miles from the hotel, and a lot of people were sitting around practicing CE5, which in itself is another mechanism to open the doorway and allow contact.
No.
And they were sitting there beaming their lights up to satellites and everything else. But we knew the key place we needed to be was 7 miles away. So off we went. And there was about 10 people with me. And there was three cars ended up in the desert. And they were all standing with their cameras. And I said to them, I says, these things will not come if you've got cameras. So they put the cameras away, and within seconds, the last camera went away, within seconds, all of a sudden this thing appeared over the top of the cars. Wow. And it was just a huge, massive white light, just boom, 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 kept pounding us almost with this light. And I can still hear one of the British girls that was with us, and she got carried away. It was just, I'll not swear, but it was F, 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 F. She was taken away with the whole thing. Yeah. But because I had experienced this phenomena in its rawest form before, I was well aware that what we were seeing was the illusion, that was the hook and bait. These things were already on the ground. And so once the illusion ended, they wanted to stay on, and I said, no, we're done. Get into the cars, because that's already on the ground. So we need to get out of here. And we left. But you got to know the phenomena, and good science starts with observation. And that's what I've been doing. I've been observing the phenomena for years now, studying it and looking at it, and even attending seances and everything else to understand what is appearing in the seance room. And the Skull experiments back in England in 1995 for a 5-year period were fascinating, absolutely fascinating, because within those sittings, twice a week for 5 years, these small miniature UFOs were appearing within the seance room and flying around the seance room.
Really?
Now, these seances became famous, and scientists were all coming in and experiencing and lining up to experience this phenomena. And not only that, I often hear that within the UFO community, they'll talk about the nuts and bolts of the craft. Anything can be manifested by this phenomenon, real or not. And in fact, during one of the sittings, one of the sitters commented that they were touched by this hand, and they followed up the hand, up the arm to the elbow, and after that there was nothing. Mm. So it can materialize, but the problem here is, you see, the deception that this phenomena uses is tremendous, absolutely tremendous. And these people have been working, like many of other seances, in darkness. But in the Livermore laboratories 20 years before, in the United States, the scientists there were having encounters with this phenomena, the very same phenomena, in broad daylight, which included strange creatures appearing in their very homes. It followed them from the laboratories to their homes. And in one instance, another arm appeared with a huge claw on the end, like one of the arms from James Bond, the villain in James Bond. And it just rotated in their bedroom in daylight, almost showing off this hook at the end of the hand, and then vanished. So the phenomena has the ability to appear in daylight, but it gives the illusion that it can only happen in darkness because we can't see it. So it aids its deception, so that we don't start asking questions. We just absorb. And this is where it brings us into a very unusual thing that the human race is doing, which drives me absolutely crazy. You see, when we start interacting and we make that connection with the phenomena, that phenomena can come through and give us three 3 lies and 1 truth. And all of a sudden, what we do is round up the 3 lies and chuck them over our shoulder and concentrate on the 1 truth. And we think, oh, it's telling us the truth. No, it told you 3 lies. Get that into your heads. This is deception.
Yeah.
And we need to recognize it for what it is. And when you do start cueing into this particular phenomenon and say, wait a minute, what you just told me is not quite right, it's amazing how quickly the phenomena ends. It gets the hell out of there because the game's up.
Yeah.
And I see this time and time again. When it's portraying itself to be Great Aunt Betty or whatever the hell the case of, whatever it is, the moment that something, wait a minute, the moment that doubt gets into her brain, it's gone. It will not stay around to continue that deception.
No, I feel like we're getting into like the ghostly part of the paranormal here now. With the phenomena, it seems like it's encompassing every part.
Yes.
And it's just the same thing, the same being creating different, we'll say, masks to make us see certain things, correct? Is that what you're saying?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So a haunting is very similar to an abduction.
Very, very, very similar. And again, when we start looking at the particular component to iron, it's we find that across the board.
With ghosts as well?
People ask me, what's the best defense against this phenomenon in all its multifacets? How do I defend myself about it? And people will go out there and they'll cover themselves in white light and which in itself attracts things to you. It's sticky. So best thing to remember is bright lights attract flies.
Ooh.
So that's something to remember. For what I have found, which has been beneficial time and time and time again, is an iron amulet. You just wear it around the neck. And I've had encounters with the Greys, and they've been petrified that I was wearing iron. The Fae, the Jinn, all of them, they're all the same. They all will not come near you with iron. Now, when we go back and we start looking at the more ancient demons from biblical times, and you start looking at the incubus and the succubus, and this aspect to Lilith and all the rest. Lilith is not what we think she is either. She's an amalgamation of several other gods as well, or goddesses. But when we start looking at the way the phenomenon interacts with us, and we see that the majority of time this phenomena will attack women more so than men. It attacks in the dead of night, and it attacks when the women enter their monthly cycle.
Oh, wow.
So naturally, the iron in their systems lowers, and many of them become anemic during that particular time frame. That's when they strike. They wait until the iron is low. Now, why is that? I put this hypothesis forward that a magnetic field, which we all produce, a very weak magnetic field that we have, is our initial defense. But when you introduce iron into a magnetic field, it suddenly it boosts it completely. So it really is something for us. And then whenever you end up in a situation where your health declines, and for whatever reason, and the iron drops, then you can become a target. So iron amulets, I find, are absolutely wonderful across the board.
Now, how does that work as an investigator if you're wearing, the thing that's repelling them?
Well, to understand that there are certain things you don't want coming near you, and there is a high level of deception, and what I urge time and time again, and I've hinted at it before, a good science starts with observation. And it's best to observe, know your prey, and because you can damn well be sure that it knows you.
Yeah.
Now, there was one thing about the iron: it doesn't work when you go underground.
Really?
Yes, and for whatever reason, we now I was having a conversation with a physicist last weekend, and there may be something there to understand. So we're going to be exploring that. It may be the interaction with light that it drops a photon or includes a photon. We're not quite sure. It's something that we want to look at, because that is one thing I've discovered time and time again. When you end up in cave systems where these doorways and things are, you need to be careful, because the defenses that work on the surface don't work underground.
All right, so you're blowing my mind here, Barry. Okay, so just to wrap I'm trying to get my brain around everything you're saying here. So we're saying every phenomena is one. I mean, would you say there's like some planetary predator that's kind of like hiding in plain sight? That obviously, if they're coming to us, if they're attaching itself to us in different ways, it must be getting something in return, right? It's not just going out there and haunting a house or making you see a UFO or doing just for fun, which it could be, everything's got a sense of humor, I guess, but it's got to be getting something in return.
Yes.
So there's like this predator out there that's making us see different things or having different experiences. What do we call this?
Whenever I talk about the phenomena, the way it interacts with us, and the fact that we're looking at the same source, this is not. I'm not saying all of the phenomena, because the phenomena that we find within ufology, for instance, is now it's in muddy water, because our technology is now being interpreted as UFOs.
Uh-huh.
So that's where it gets very muddy. And there are other instances in other parts of the fringe research fields where we also get this muddiness of the water. But with the phenomena in its truest sense, yes, it's originating from the same source. And that source is dimensional. Now, predatory, yes. Bear in mind, he who has the body wins. And that's what it's about. Because it cannot stay here indefinitely without attaching or without getting in, which is more important.
So like a parasite.
Wins, the body wins. That's the phrase. Now, when it comes through, for instance, during a Ouija board session, let's say, you've got 4 people there and they're communicating with what they presume to be Great Auntie Betty. And what's happening there is that they've gone past the 20-second rule, and now they're comfortable with it. Their fight or flight has been switched off, so their skin resistance is now lowered. Their immune system is settled. It's not on high alert anymore. That is where it happens. That is where this attachment makes the connection, because we're not on high alert. Our defenses are not up. And that easing into that particular area is where this connection is made. And that in itself, it can be for a short period, it can be for a long period, and it can squirrel its way in over months. And we see the insidiousness of this particular phenomena, especially within groups who are inexperienced, where this darkness penetrates the group from the inside out and just destroys them, and the infighting, and a huge amount of psychological things are going on, and the manipulation is there, and that a lot of that originates with this particular phenomenon. Really? It just tears people apart, and that's we need to recognize it for what it is. So that's pretty much what the phenomena does, and where it comes from. Now, how do we know it comes from? It's dimensional. How do we know that? A lot of that does come from a lot of the sittings, like the skull experiments, where contact was made, and it was made clear that they come from a place of nothing, absolute nothing. Now, within some religions, of course, within Christianity, there was a time where they believed in purgatory. Not so much nowadays, but purgatory was a place of nothing.
Yeah,
absolute nothing, a void. And when we consider, if we visualize this place of nothing that would relate into the vast ocean beyond the river of Styx, if you like, in which you had to use the ferryman to get you to the other side, as sung in the song, of course. But yeah, from that we also see that coming through with the work from the prolific out of body experiencer Robert Monroe down in Virginia, the Virginia Institute, and he was able to project from the body inside the laboratory on command, and he was exceptional at what he did. But he always, when he wanted to go to the other side, for instance, he commented on passing over this ocean of darkness, and he said within the ocean there were singular entities of a very basic, rudimentary intelligence, but they could think for themselves. And he said to pass over that water to get to the other side, he had to travel very slowly, because if you travel fast, it causes them to pay attention to you, and that of course causes all manner of problems, because they'll attack and everything else. But he said more importantly, on the way back, and this has happened to him several times, on the way back as he's coming back through the veil to come to this side, he said they can come through, they leak through. And he said that's a severe problem, because these shadows, as he calls them, cause all manner of trouble.
They leak through. Oh,
yeah.
They give you chills right there.
So it's important, it's important as researchers, we go there. Yes, we can open the door, we can commune, we can end up having situations where we do learn things, but developing that takes time. There has to be a lot of trust involved on both sides, but there has been great work done in gaining knowledge from this other side, but our sources have to be checked and double checked.
Now, Barry, I feel like you've taken the role of researcher from like here to here, like because
well, I can tell you, it's certainly not Ghosthunters International anymore.
Yeah, I'm sitting here thinking, back, when I've talked to you before, you were Ghosthunters International, you were, one of the, yeah, Ghosthunters is a big show, but Ghosthunters International, you've nationwide star here, but you're busting the ghosts, you're going through castles, and now you're busted everything.
I just widened the scope.
You widened the scope. Now, what was the one thing? What changed for you? What was the one thing that said, okay, like what I've been doing here is there's more to it, and to take that next step, because this is a big change. I've never really heard this side of it before, and it makes sense, and it's huge.
There was a significant change, and I can remember it happening. We were investigating myths and legends of the island of Ireland, and we were exploring various different landscapes to see if any essence of those original legends were still, I suppose, on the landscape. And we ended up writing a lot of things about it. And one of the books was called Legend Seekers, which we worked to do that. But one location we completely underestimated, and when we ended up going, we called it the Island of the Dead. The story was known as the Island of the Dead. 10 years later, the research came through, which showed that actually it is an Island of the Dead. That's what it was used for. So 10 years prior, we were calling it this, not understanding that that's actually what it was used for.
Wow.
And it was the experiences on that island that were so extreme. And I remember saying to Cormac, my co-author, I says, if I ever encounter that again, I'm finished. I want nothing to do with that. It scared the bejesus out of me. It was one of the most dramatic things I've ever encountered. The fear was like nothing else.
Really?
And you have 1 foot on solid ground, and yet part of you then is is in this other place. And it's absolutely, it was, the fear levels were beyond anything else. And but that in itself, I can see, looking back now, I can see that needed to happen, because it shifted my paradigm of what I thought everything was, and suddenly opened me up to this new version, and seeing all these other connections. And it was a really wild experience. But I've been back to the island. Initially, I said I never want to go back there again. I don't want to know that place.
Mm-hmm.
But I ended up going back just before our lockdowns came into the island. And I went back, but no, bear in mind, I went back in daylight. I wasn't going to be that stupid. And we ended up going back, and I, at the point where this doorway to this other, the veil to this other place, I was using specialized equipment to measure time. And for the first time ever, we saw at the event horizon of this particular place that time was affected. And we were able to record it.
Really?
And the doorway is still active. But by God, it is absolutely terrifying what slips through, and how you see it in its rawest form. But that's where our dead were brought to. And that particular process is something which in itself was inherited from Mesopotamia.
Mm-hmm.
The people who were building these particular places came from the Fertile Crescent and came across. And if we want to understand a lot of the phenomena, what I would urge people to do is research the mound builders, because that's where we tend to find a lot of this particular phenomena. And even the Banshee here in Ireland, we see her as being the fairy, but the Banshee, in the title itself, gives us a lot of information, because ban in Irish is woman. She, of course, we see that within modern Irish as being the fairy, but that's not actually quite true. That's not a proper pronunciation or conversion. She means mounds. It's woman of the mounds.
Really?
Just like the people of the mounds.
Oh.
And where I was in that mountain that particular night when those beings appeared, I was sitting in one of those mounds. Those three people that initially disappeared into one of those mounds. And those mounds were built prior to the Great Pyramids of Giza.
Mm.
And the mound builders we find from Babylon right up through, they kept going west and ended up in the Americas as well. But it was absolutely mind-blowing to see this all happen. But recently I came across cuneiform tablets from Mesopotamia, and they were describing the same entity as what we would recognize as the Banshee today.
Wow.
And it made sense because the builders were coming from that area.
Yeah. Now that,
so it's history, of course, is mixed up with this fundamentally, but it's been one hell of a ride to get to here. And the next book I'm working on, The Fruit of the Gods, it was like nothing else. And my God, it's just I can't get over the story that has been developing here. And I just wish that the laboratory would stop dragging its bloody feet and give me the results that I need. But it has been absolutely staggering.
Now, what is it about? What is it about?
It's about understanding the passage chambers, the mound builders, and also there were particular references within Akkadian wall art within Mesopotamia of these huge creatures with wings holding a fruit. Now we know what the fruit is. Now we know the tree species. Now we know why they were taking it. Now we know why the tree and the fruit was so important. And also, that particular being also holds a handbag. And we often wondered, what is the bag about? What is that bag? Is it a purse? Does it keep its wallet in the handbag? No, the handbag is representative of this whole thing that we've been following. And that handbag we find not only in the likes of the ancient temples in Syria and Turkey, inscribed there, we also find them in the Mayan wall art.
Oh,
The
wow.
same bloody bag.
Wow.
And the connection with the serpents. Now I know what it is. And I can't even give you a hint of what that is until the book comes out.
I know. I was sitting here. I was like, should I ask? No, he's not going to tell me anyway.
No. But the answer to that was found on islands in the Mediterranean.
Wow, that's completely fascinating. How can folks find you? How, like, if they want to research Barry Fitzgerald, what's he doing? Where's he going? You know, where can I find his books? Like, how do people find you?
People can find, they can find the books on Amazon. But if they want to have a conversation or whatever, or follow me, they can find me on Facebook. But I would say that I'm not on Facebook a lot, because obviously I'm out on the hills, I'm in the lakes, I'm doing my research. Eventually I get back to that, and I'll answer the emails and everything else. But so predominantly people can find me on Facebook.
Very awesome, Barry. I want to thank you so much. I
you
feel
very
like we
much.
just tapped into something, and then we're just like leaving it.
Yeah.
Very fascinating. When the book comes out, can we have you back on?
Absolutely, yes, for sure.
I think that'll be a lot of fun.
If folks are interested in learning some more about what I'm doing, the recent book has just come out, The Deceptions of Gods and Men, and that's available on Amazon.
The Deceptions of God and Men.
Gods and Men.
Gods and Men. Very cool. All right, Barry, we will talk again. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate you.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye. And with that, the fire is out. Thank you so much, Barry. It has been an honor to have you on this show. Thank you, all of you that are listening. You know I love and appreciate every single one of you. If we have not yet connected on social media, make sure you reach out. Fireside Paranormal Hub on Facebook. We're on Instagram, Twitter, at Fireside Parapod, Parapod, TikTok. The website is firesideparanormal.com. Get all your sweet, sweet Fireside merch. And if you get the chance, check out that Patreon, patreon.com/Fireside Paranormal. This is all our time for this week. So until next week, everybody, don't be afraid, only believe.